Yeah. Hi. So we are live now. A very warm good morning to everyone present here, starting with our esteemed guest for the day, Dipika. She's joined us here to have this grateful discussion on like national education policy and in general the education policy in India with us. And welcome to all educators who've joined, and also like our interns who are here to learn a lot through this session. So a very warm welcome to each one of you. As part of Sarkari School, I invite each one of you to the session. Starting with the session, I would like to talk a bit about our organization, that is Sarkari School. Sarkari School.in is an initiative of We Citizens Foundation, and we are a platform that began around in 2019, and these are individuals who work towards bettering the education sector. As a platform, it has been our major goal for recognizing and celebrating the unsung heroes who tirelessly contribute to the upliftment of government schools and education in India. These individuals deserve not only our appreciation but also our support and recognition to inspire others. They demonstrate that self-determination and hard work with this anything is possible, and Sarkari School becomes a platform for recognizing these people. Our primary objective is to change the negative perception surrounding government schools and to do our bit for the upliftment of education in these schools. We engage a lot of Sarkari school teachers through our platform. We have different projects running for that as well. We work across more than 3,000 youth across India and had the privilege to work with more than 500 schools across India so far. So we aim to take the narrative of government school education forward through our platform. So, very good morning to all of you who have joined for this session. Through this session, we'll be talking about mainly the transforming nature of Indian education and bridging gaps and innovative methods being involved through the national education policy. So, now to begin our event, I'd like to invite Deepika to give an introductory message to all of you and share her experience in education sector with all of you. And I hope you are able to get like good insights from her.
Hello, everyone. First of all, thank you, Sarkari School and also Sri Lakshmi for inviting me. I'm really delighted and honored to be here. So before, I think starting off, there's one activity that I always like to start with. This is something that I do in my class also. So I know it's a Sunday and all of us must be feeling quite lazy and tired and sleepy also. So let's start off by showing some emojis as to how we are coming to the space, right? For example, I'll share a particular emoji that I can currently relate with the most because I am actually quite tired today because I was helping a friend shift also. So I think, okay, I can't find that particular emoji, but let me start. So also, yeah, this is currently how I'm feeling. I think I'm a little blue, under the weather, and also a little tired. So you guys can all share certain emojis and let me know how you're coming to the space. You're happy, excited, tired, whatsoever you're feeling. You can just go with it. I see Sri Lakshmi is a little confused. Sri Lakshmi, you want to explain your emoji?
Yeah, so it's like a perplexed emoji, like where like today I woke up with like this thing, like anything can come to me today because it's like a celebration in my home, like it's Onam here. So it's like a bit of like a festival. So I'm like, I don't know anything about it. And I feel very like I felt very confused in the morning on like what to do. And then I told my mom I can't engage her in this festival because I have an important event. So yeah, a lot of things in my head now.
First
So
of all, happy Onam, I think, and we'll wait for some other people to also show their emojis. I can't see an emoji as of now. If you can start sharing. Okay. I see Nikita has shared. I also see Anjali has shared. Just Maria, I'm assuming. Yes. Okay. Great. Great. Amazing. I might ask one or two to come off mute and share while you're put that emoji. Anamika, you want to share why you're feeling a little sad?
I actually put it up on the chat. Like, I had a good night's sleep. I was feeling very well. But then Sri Lakshmi reminded me of Onam. I'm a Keralite, so Onam is like our festival. And I can't go home because I'm studying away from home. And yeah, now I miss home.
Oh, I totally understand that. I mean, I've been away from home for the past 7 years, and it makes me really sad sometimes because I can't go back home during Bihu, right? So yeah, okay. Then I think we are good to start. Can I see some thumbs ups on the screen so that I feel a little confident of starting the session? Okay. Thanks, guys. Thank you so much, Chef Priya, Anjali. Okay. Hello, everyone. I am Dipika. I am currently working as a Teach for India Fellow. This is the year 2 of my journey, the second year of my fellowship, actually. And this is actually the last leg of my fellowship. I just have a few months remaining, somewhere about like 5 to 6 months remaining. And so far, it has been really, really amazing. So, if you know from my profile, I actually graduated in international relations, and I was quite passionate about it actually. But then eventually, when COVID hit, I thought that social sector is something that I really, really wanted to work in. And that is why I decided to make that transition for myself, right? So I've been working with government schools for the past 1.5 years. So for the first year of my fellowship, I was placed in a school, and it's of course an under-resourced government school, serving an under-resourced community in Malviya Nagar. So the name of my school was Sarvodaya Kanya Vidyalaya Malviya Nagar, and now a year after that, I am working with the community in Masjid Maud, and now it's a co-ed school. So my previous school was a girls' school, and now it's a co-ed school. The reason I had to make this transition was because um, I was teaching 10th grade, and as soon as my kids passed the boards exam, so I had to be shifted or transitioned to a new school. So in the past 1.5 years, I think we have seen a lot of challenges in the school structure. But one one perception that I would really want to address is the fact that while growing up, because I think most of us have had the privilege to study in a private school or a public school, we have had this notion that government school teachers, they don't work as hard or they are not as invested. But that is one myth that got shattered during my first year when I realized that the government school teachers, they actually do work very, very hard. I think some of the major roadblocks that I've seen so far is the fact that, how these school teachers are leveraged for even the most minute government activities, right? So they're busy with data most of the time. And that is one of the reasons why, like, they cannot be as invested in the lesson plans or delivering the lessons, because they have a lot of other things going on side by side. So that is one major roadblock that I witnessed, wherein teachers are not being able to invest as much in the classroom because they have to address, thousands of other activities and thousands of other work that comes their way. That is one. Second, I think has also been a lack of empathy among certain teachers, in the sense that, there's a lack of sensitivity. All of us are aware of corporal punishments, right? How many of us are aware of corporal punishments? Can you show me a thumbs up or something? Okay, I see one thumbs up from Sri Lakshmi. Others, do you know what corporal punishment is? Okay. Nikita, can I go forward and ask you what do you understand by corporal punishment? Nikita, can you come off mute and share?
Am I audible? Actually, there is some issue with my network. Just a second.
Yeah, sure. Nikita, are we good to go? I
I
think
think
Nikita,
Nikita is having a network issue. Maybe
yeah,
Jess
okay.
Maria has raised her hand.
Okay, just Maria, please go ahead.
It is a physical punishment that like teachers are physically punishing the students in the schools or institutions.
Absolutely. I think just Maria is right. And Shilakshmi, do you want to add something to it? Anything to add?
Yeah, I felt it like, like you said about government schools and government teaching methods, we often have it like portrayed in like movies also, like pop culture and in general, like how teachers teaching methods earlier used to have a lot of corporal punishment that if you don't submit a work on time, if you're not proper in class, like physically like beating kids up, and
Yeah.
like especially like as you remember, like in Kerala there are these school movies where you have this can, like the big, like the stick with which like the teacher is portrayed to like beat the child up. So yeah, that is what comes to my mind when you just said that.
You guys are absolutely right. So corporal punishment is literally just physically beating the students to instill a sense of fear. And I think that that has been a method of teaching for a really, really long time, especially in the Indian education system, Indian structure, wherein there is this power dynamic between the teacher and the student, where the teacher tries to instill a sense of fear through physical beating. I think I have seen corporal punishment in the school system while I was growing up also. And years down the line, nothing much has changed, right? So I feel that empathizing the teachers or sensitivity training is one way to go about it. I think these are two major roadblocks that I saw, because I have heard stories also where students are, quite scared of the teachers, scared to the point that they have self-harm thoughts. So I don't think that is that is any way to go about, getting any sort of work done, or even, making the students understand or learn anything. I think these are two major roadblocks that I've seen for the past like 1.5 years. Yeah, back to you, Sri Lakshmi.
Yeah, so with that, like I would like to like carry on the discussion forward. Let's start with like your initial experience was what was with secondary education, right? You were teaching 10th standard students. So while we look at a lot of like, newer policies and making the studies more vocational and more choice based coming up, like where people can take up, students can take up their subjects, how far do you think it is actually going to help students? Like how far will these students will be actually able to make use of this choice? Do you think that such choices should be given early on in education, or should it like come up with like only in the secondary sector that you worked in? So yeah.
I think this should actually come a little early, in the sense that in the schools that we work in, we generally see a pattern wherein the students are divided on the basis of their rigors, right? Some might be very high performing, some might be high potential, some might be high risk students. So there's always a rigor divide. And what I have witnessed over the course of time is the fact that high rigor students always tend to get a little more attention than the high potential kids or the high risk kids, right? And it's not like the high risk kids, they do not have any skills or they do not have any mindset to grow, but it's just that the attention is dispersed in a way where there's no differentiated learning happening in the class. We are not leveraging the skills of the high support kids or the high potential kids. Rather, we are just focusing on this few people, on these bunch of kids who are high performing, right? So I think it should come very early on and should not wait for the secondary classes, because then the students will also be able to build confidence in themselves. They'll also be self-motivated when they know that they are actually good at certain things, and it's not necessary to be only good at maths and science or English and SST to succeed in life. So I think it should actually come very early on. to build up that mindset, to help the students self-motivate, or, to even build confidence in students.
Yeah, right. So, on like the aspect of again coming to like appreciating and giving like a sort of recognition for different skill sets in education. We understand like all of your like yesterday, me and Nikita and Shivpriya, we were also talking about the same aspect, like how educational treatment by even teachers actually have an impact on children, right? You want to be that recognized child in a class. If you're bad at math, you suddenly cease to be that recognized child in the class. So like while we're coming up with these policies, do you think that can we change the social perception? Like, will the society actually take up a child who has an artistic skills and give him a higher or an equal food setting to a child who's good at science anyway? So, are these policies like maybe what can we do to change that narrative of
I
like such?
think, Sri Lakshmi, nothing is set on stone, right? There were a lot of things that was wrong with the Indian society, but we did change over time, right? For that matter, like any sort of social taboo that was persistent over a period of time did get changed, because uh, we talked about revolution, we talked about reformation and everything, right? So I think it is possible to change the mindset. It is possible to change the perception. It's not going to happen over a year or two. It's going to take a lot of time, maybe 10 years, 20 years, I don't know. But it is going to happen. And I think it also comes with structural changes, right? So as long as we have a certain set structure ki 10 plus 2 hai, right? And 10th तक 10th में बच्चे boards देंगे, उसके बाद streams divided है, science, commerce, humanities, ठीक है? Science वाले बच्चों को they are always considered to be high rigor, or high performing kids, whereas the ones taking up humanities are always considered to be a little lesser on the academic side or something like that. So I think structure also has to play a huge role in setting up perceptions. I think if there are structural changes happening in the education system, it might as well add to the perception change or mindset change in people. I think it's going to take a lot of time, but then it will happen. So I see two hands raised from Nikita and Dipankar. Like, you guys want to go ahead with your questions or something?
Nikita, you can go ahead first and then Dipankar.
So I want to add something. So there is one video that is going viral of a teacher like forcing student to hit a child, and
Yeah.
that's really sad to see that like student will be afraid to go to school. School is a place where we want to learn things, and we if the teacher is doing something like that, like he or she is the role model of student at that age, and if he or she is doing something like that, then what effect that it will send to students. So it's really, we have to see like what teachers we appoint in school and how they like teach the students. It's really very important.
Adding on to your point, Nikita, I think it's not about the appointment as much as it is about the training, right?
Yes.
I don't think any human being or any person essentially is a bad person, or essentially is someone who carries these negative thoughts. I think it's about exposure. It's about the training that they get. It's about the physical environment that a person grows up in. And I think with the right kind of training, with the right kind of exposure, these problems can actually be addressed, right? For my classroom as well, there's one thing that we always ensure, like me and my co-fellow, we never try to impose our understanding of something on the students. We don't try to impose our knowledge of things on the students. Rather, we let the students explore certain concepts themselves, because these are 9th graders that I'm currently teaching, and they are almost 14-15 years old. They would become adults in another 3-4 years. So I think it's very important for us to enable the kids to actually help think for themselves, rather than just sort of imposing. I think that also comes with a lot of training, a lot of sensitization, and not essentially like a problem with the human being per se. Dipankar, you want to go ahead?
First of all, very good morning to all of you. I have one question and 2-3 suggestions, like policies I think should be implemented. First is question about mixing of subjects. The new education policy, which was launched in 3 years ago, I think. So there it is suggested that a student in like higher classes also, like he's in 10th or 12th, he can take bio with computer science or bio with an arts subject. I mean, it seems a very good thing, but practically, if you think the pressure of the studies, if you are taking a bio stream, okay, you want to become a doctor. Next year you will give NEET. How much is it practical to implement these changes? And given the state of Sarkari schools in India, we all know the reality. How will this transcend to the Sarkari schools? This is my first question. Secondly, I want to say a thing like in lockdown, we have said we have all used online modes of education. Here also we are meeting online. But I think offline education is the most prominent part of education itself, because education is not all about academics. When we sit with our friends, we do some workshop, we make bonds with them, and those bonds are lifelong. We meet good people, we see their qualities, we talk in between. Here in Zoom meeting, everyone is muted, one is saying, okay, we are good for, this is good for academic discussion. But in a classroom, offline, that I think offline is the best mode ever, and online can never and should not ever replace this offline thing. It could be an additional thing for education and all, good. Secondly, about selection of a teacher. I think the basis of a selection of a teacher is, okay, first thing should be that she is or she is qualified enough. But the more important thing should be, does she or he loves the subject himself? Like, I think if a teacher, if a person loves a subject, loves something, he can do anything and everything for that subject, to teach that, to learn that. And last thing I want to say, actually, my subject is in graduation. I'm doing thinking of PG also. So my graduation subject is history. So I am very sad by seeing the state India is in now about history and other things. Like, no one, I have not met my batchmates who have read any single book of history ever. But they all have knowledge of 1990s, 1960s, and mostly modern post-independence history, but they all know everything. Like, how do you know? Only through Insta post, through Facebook post, through WhatsApp forwards. This cannot be a way forward. And this is a pressing issue and is a very concerning issue. Like I think Nikita said about yesterday's incident. No? I think that behavior is facilitated by the fake news, fake history, cherry-picked facts, which is spread through social media. So internet, I don't think internet can be controlled. We can just suggest, advise, strongly recommend students to read books. We can make medium-sized libraries in Sarkari schools. Even, I'll say, even if there are not proper classrooms in Sarkari schools, I will say first make a good medium-sized library filled with good books. Thank you. That's all from me. First question was there about mixing of subjects.
Okay. Thank you, Dipankar, for your questions. I think it makes sense to me, right? But addressing your first question, my question to you would be, why not? I mean, a person who is very, very sure that he or she wants to opt for biology because they want to become a doctor in the future, right? And they appear for NEET. But that person also has an equal amount of interest in history or political science, because I have had students in 10th grade who were very much interested in biology, but at the same time were super invested in history. So for a person, why should we limit, right? In the sense that if that person, I mean, hopefully he or she gets through, but if he or she is not able to get through NEET, they will always have a second option to fall back on, something that they also love. It's not like they don't love it, right? So I think it's a good thing that we are going forward with. I don't know how substantial it's going to be, or how it's going to be executed at the grassroots level. But I also do feel that this might become very, very helpful in the coming future, wherein we are not, constricting the students, saying that if you have opted for science, you can only study science, or if you have opted for humanities, you can only study humanities, and you will have no connections with the rest of the subjects whatsoever, right? So I find this particular method to be a little, regressive, in the sense that we should not be restricting students. Rather, we should actually enable them, open doors for them, and say that, you do whatever you feel like, you do whatever your heart says, right? So if you are interested in biology and tomorrow you want to actually go for history, then go for it. Right? We should keep these doors open, and that is what I firmly believe in. Then second of all, I think, to answer your second question, um, hands down, offline methods are way, way, way better than online teaching, right? Because we have struggled with online teaching a lot, wherein we know, the kids, most of them, they do not have a proper stable internet connections at their homes, or they don't even have a good smartphone. Sometimes they are a little, apprehensive about switching on their cameras because they feel a certain way. So I think online classes overall has been a little, a bit of a roadblock for us, in the sense that sometimes there are connectivity issues. Sometimes the kids, you think, would pay attention, but then they don't pay attention, and you can't really say anything because they're off camera and you don't really see them, so you can't really make any comments. So I think offline method is any day better. And of course, as you mentioned the point, that the bonds that the kids make, right? Even for a teacher and student to connect, it's very, very important that you physically meet and you physically get to talk to that person and physically get to spend time. I think that's really important. But also, having said that, desperate times calls for desperate measures, right? The online mode of education, it basically came during COVID, and at that point in time, we had no other way to, cope with this particular challenge. And I'll be very honest when I say this: the 2 years in COVID that we spent being locked down in the houses, I think for the students, it was a major, major setback, because they've actually lost on 2 years of substantial education, To this day, we struggle with very, very basic concepts, because kids who were in 6th standard, all of a sudden were in 8th standard, and now they had to study books of 8th standard, whereas, they did not even properly get to study the 6th and 7th standard. So I think this is a major, this was a major setback for students as well as the teachers, because till this date we are like struggling with the after effects of what COVID did to the education system overall. But having said that, at that point in time, I don't think we had any other measures but to go for an online mode of education, right? Coming to your third question, so I don't think I am equipped enough to answer that question, because social media is something which is a boon as well as a bane, I would say. Because boon in the sense that we do need YouTube and other social media websites for the students to actually grow and learn, for them to be able to access to new information, new ideas, new technologies and everything. But having said that, it's also a bane, because you can't like put a stop to the kind of content that they are consuming, because otherwise how will you like monitor each and every student, right? You can't like put a checkpoint on the kind of content they're consuming. Because I'll tell you something, because kids nowadays, I've heard them talking about Andrew Tate and how he's just a motivational speaker and how he motivates students and all of these things, right? So you can't really put a break to the kind of content that they're consuming. But what you can do is you can have conversations with the kids and get to know the kind of content that they're consuming, and then probably address it in the classrooms or address it directly. So I think that way you can stop it. But otherwise, I don't think you can control technology or you can control social media or the flow of content per se. Any other questions? I think Anamika had her hand raised.
Yeah, Anamika, you can go next.
Yeah, so I had just one small question. So in Dipankar's speech, he said how social media has been overpowering the education system. But in my opinion, to some extent, I feel social media should have involvement in education, because at this point in the 21st century, it's inevitable to stay away from online knowledge and to just stick to books. Because I am personally that person who would not read a 500 700 page book, but I would rather read a summary and watch YouTube interacting videos where the person is explaining the books. So I feel it's about the knowledge and not about how you acquire it at some point. But yes, the people have to be careful about where they're consuming the information from. I mean, WhatsApp forward message is not a good place, but obviously from a YouTube trained educator, it's a good place to learn from. And nevertheless, I feel the teacher should be trained enough to clear the doubts and go about teaching students. So I wanted to know your opinion about the Finnish system, which I also brought about in our previous month in discussion, where, in the Finnish system, it's the PhD scholars who are teaching young children. So there they reiterate the fact that it's very professional and very highly talented people who are required to, mold young minds. People who are above the age of 18, they mold themselves. So here in India, PhD scholars are the people who are teaching college students, and college students already have a persona of how they should go about their life, how they should be dealing with college professors themselves. So do you think there is a reverse in the system required, or what kind of system do you think will be apt for a dynamic country like India? That's about my question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. So Anamika, to answer your question, I don't think the age gap should be the focal point, in the sense that I think I'm also like a lot of the TFI fellows, they're quite young. They come into the system quite young. They hardly must have like 5-6 years of age difference between a 10th grader and a 21-year-old fellow, right, who has just graduated from college and entered the system. I don't think it's about the age per se. I think systems, school systems or college systems, any system in particular, I don't think should stop independent thinking, or should be structured in a way where there's this one person who is the primary source of knowledge and primary source of education, and that one person is imparting everything. I think education should be a flow, in the sense that any teacher should enable independent thinking. So I hope that answers your question. Anamika, is there anything that you want to ask?
Yeah, actually, my question was not related to the age gap per se, because the concern that I possessed was like, if the teachers are more trained, like for young students, for students say who are in the 5th grade, if they have a teacher who as somebody said, like doesn't have an interest in their own subject, who is hating themselves while teaching the students, that will have a negative impact on the students themselves. But when it's a PhD graduate, like as an example of the Finnish system, they have a like very keen interest towards the subject they have taken a doctorate degree in. So don't you think that will be a more good way of going about molding the young citizens of India?
I'm not really sure if it's going to be a good way or a bad way, because nothing is like black and white. I think
everything has its gray tones.
है ना, क्योंकि if I have to be very, very honest, sometimes PhD students, even if they've completed their doctorate in that particular subject, at the end of the day might not end up liking it. And it's a reality that happens, right? At the end of the day, they might actually want to change their course and they might actually want to transition to a different field altogether. And that happens. And it's only human to, accept that. And it's not really necessary that each and every PhD student who has completed their PhD will be in love with their subject. So they will be a, better teacher per se. I
That's
think
very
it
much true.
also,
Like,
yes, Sri
even
Lakshmi,
if
you want to add something?
people are doing their PhD, they might not be good with teaching. They might have a doctorate
Yes,
degree, but then the teaching
absolutely.
element is not really that.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I
Sri
think I'll
Lakshmi, you
study
want to
more
add
upon the
something?
Finnish system and work on that then.
No, it's absolutely okay. I mean, you have a valid question, right? So we generally tend to think that, because a person is investing 5 to 6 years of their life studying a particular topic, studying a particular subject. So we tend to think that that person will be more invested. But according to my experience, that might not be the case every time. And I am not, as equipped as you are in terms of this term that you're using. I think, what is it? It's called Finnish?
Finnish
The
system.
Finnish system, like basically
Finnish system.
the Finnish
Okay.
model of
But whatever,
education. That's all.
okay, great. So whatever I am sharing is through practical experience, right? What I've seen over the years and what I've actually witnessed. And Sri Lakshmi and Aryan and Dipankar have their hands raised.
Yeah, so yeah, just kind of steering the discussion a bit here because as you can see, our interns are very interested in exploring different models where like teaching methods and education is concerned. Like
Absolutely, yeah.
yeah, so what I was thinking was like just you said, right? A PhD scholar needn't always be like a person who's extra very passionate about his subject anymore. Like the bunker said, to teach someone in a certain way, you need to first like yourself and what you're teaching better. So I would like to ask you a question now, steering it towards more of like what you do. What were your subjects of interest and are you getting a chance to teach them through this fellowship? Can you kind of take us through how the fellowship functions? Or like how do you teach and like how do you decide the subject that you get to teach? And then in general, your experience with teaching something different from what you've learned before or something like that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that question, Sri Lakshmi. I think you don't get to choose the subject, but it's more like allotted to you. Yes, I am actually getting to teach subjects that I'm very, very passionate about. So I have always loved humanities, and I have done my 11th and 12th in humanities. I always knew that I was going to study political science history. So I did my honors in political science, and civics is essentially who I am in the core, right? I love that subject, and I am super grateful to the TFI structure that I got to teach SST, and I got to share everything that I've learned over the years with my students, and also to shape young minds. I think nothing better than that. I get to have discussions with them. I get to have discussions on democracy, values of our constitution. I think it makes me very, very happy. And I'm really lucky that I got to teach SST. I think subject allotment is something that is entirely, I mean, TFI does it, and no fellows get to choose their subject or their schools as such, but then you are allotted subjects according to the kind of education that you have had, or according to the kind of subjects that you have studied prior to joining the fellowship, right? So that is how I was allotted SST and English. So it comes in a combination of two subjects. So you either get SST or English, or you get maths and science. So TFI only has 4 subjects in its ambit, and we don't go beyond these 4 subjects. So a fellow teaching maths would also teach science, a fellow teaching English would also teach SST, and vice versa. So this is allotted entirely by TFI, and I think it totally depends on the kind of educational background that you've had, or kind of work that you've done. I have gotten the chance to actually teach what I love, and that is what I love about the fellowship because, I'll share something which is very personal. It's sort of like an anecdote. So geography for me was a subject that I used to hate a lot because geography used to be utterly boring, right? It used to be really boring for me. And growing up, I never liked geography. For me, it was just a subject that I had to study to just score marks in and just to get done with it of sorts. But then now, as I'm teaching kids geography, I I understand how interesting the subject can be with the help of visual aids. I mean, if you actually show students what a gorge actually looks like, or what a delta looks like, the students can actually visually imagine it. If you tell them that this is the map of India, these are the Himalayas. From here, the rivers flow, and they often flow downstream. This is the Arabian Sea, this is the Bay of Bengal. So if you help them visually imagine geography, I think geography can become very, very interesting. So I am really, really grateful to TFI because I got to explore things that I probably never had the chance to explore before, especially like talking about geography. Like I started to like the subject after I started to teach it because I had to spend a lot of time studying geography books. And then I realized, okay, this could actually be made interesting through the use of visual aids, right? So I think, yeah, to answer your question, I think the fellowship has been quite interesting for me in terms of also exploring myself and finding a lot about myself.
Yeah, so for more information for people who've joined us who might be interested in taking this up, and like I think this is a good initiative to bring young minds into education sector with an
Absolutely.
incentive to work also, right? So while you said that the allocation of subject is not completely like based on the preference that you give, but I think they might consider your educational background
Yes,
before that allocation
absolutely.
for sure.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, Dipankar will take up Q&A in a while now. So, yeah. So, what I was saying is just that while you deal with the subject, do you think as a graduate or like as a postgraduate, with less of like a teacher training, you're equipped enough to deal with it, or do you struggle on a daily basis? Or like, tell us more about those because we'll come to teaching methodologies in a bit. So, first, we'd like to get an experience out of you. Like, yeah. So, do
Okay.
you struggle with?
No, we don't actually, because as soon as you join the fellowship, you have a month and a half long training in Pune, right? And this is a very, very rigorous training that TFI gives because we have a certain structure, and this structure has been tried and tested for 10 plus years now, and it has worked every time in every classroom in every school that TFI has ever intervened, right? And we are trained in teaching methodologies. We are trained in how to deal with students. We actually practice, addressing students. We have these attention grabbers that we do. For example, the activity that I did today with you guys, showing off emojis on how you're feeling. So this is something we often do in our classrooms. That is sort of like an opening activity for us to, create a hook for the students to actually be interested and to retain their attention. I think we are trained enough. And it's not like the training ends with 1.5 months of training in Pune. The training is a continuous process throughout the year. We have a lot of training sessions. We have our program managers who comes and observes our classrooms, and they also like sort of, keep check-ins with us where they tell us the areas that we can grow, what are the areas that we are doing well in. So we have like a very proper established mechanism in the TFI system itself where we constantly get support from the organization. And I think I speak for all the fellows here, we don't feel lost at all. We enter the classrooms with a lot of confidence. We enter the classrooms feeling fully prepared because that is what the organization ensures. Like they just don't send you to the classroom to deal with it yourself. They train you well enough. They train you, they sensitize you, they make you practice. So I think that really helps a lot.
All right. Also, understanding like kind of teaching methodologies and teaching techniques a bit more. Do you think that while you're working on ground, I assume you're working in a school and an offline setting, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you must be also interacting with other teachers, like the government teachers who will be working in the particular school. So do you think that teaching programs or workshops conducted for teachers, because now we're coming up with newer policies for sure, but not only we need to equip the students with those skill set, but also the teaching community with the skill set needed for those vocational studies. So, looking at from a ground perspective of education, what do you think about the teaching techniques and how are these teachers trained for like the challenges ahead?
So most of the teachers, as you'll know, must have completed a B.Ed degree, right? And they must have appeared for a PGT exam or a TGT exam and then probably entered the system, right? They are also trained enough. I don't think they're not trained. They're also equipped enough. And I think the government, the state government, or the central government, depending on the school structure that you have continuous training programs for the teachers, right? And I think it's really, really helpful because when you're in the training, you get to meet a lot of other teachers, you get to interact, you get to learn a lot from them, you get to learn the kind of systems that they have in their schools. And I think when they come back from the training, it really does add, because from the elementary perspective, if I have to tell you, I do know teachers who goes on puppet training. I do know teachers who goes on, Kian classes training. And I think when they come back, they feel equipped enough to like deal with the digital aspect of things. Otherwise, हमारे लिए क्या होता है कि डिजिटल प्लेटफॉर्म्स जो होते हैं टीचर्स इतना लेवरेज नहीं कर पाते हैं गिवन द फैक्ट दैट दे आर नॉट वेरी टेक्नोलॉजिकली इक्विप्ड बट workshops or any sort of seminars to help the teachers get themselves equipped with technology or anything, it really, really helps. And I think for secondary education, they have different sort of, seminars on sciences, exhibitions hota hai, bahut sari cheeze hoti hai. The teachers learn a lot from these and they come back and actually impart whatever they have gained from these platforms to the students. So I think they also are trained enough. I don't think there's any, lack of information in regards to teaching techniques or teaching methodologies. It's just that I think for the sensitivity part of it, I think we should actually organize more workshops to sensitize teachers on, how to be a little more empathetic, how to be a little more observant, how to be a little more patient for that matter, because patience is something that might, a lack of patience might end up triggering certain unwanted situations. For example, the corporal punishment thing that we just talked about. I think ये जो हम मेथोडोलॉजी के बारे में बात करें, इसमें I think empathy, sensitization, ये सब should actually become like a core part of it, right? And not just like the technical trainings that they receive.
Yeah. So again, like bringing this forward, the narrative, we're kind of setting a narrative that sarkari schools are like teachers who are teaching in government schools are not as bad as the like common narrative is set, right? Ki like, we asked our interns on their first date, like, what is the image of a sarkari school in your head? So what few of the comments and like few of the remarks that we got were like, uh, empty classrooms with less serious teachers and stuff like that. But I think that's just like a narrative, and we aim to change that with time by giving such platforms. Like now, you just gave us a ground perspective, and I hope like our listeners would be understanding that there's a lot more to government schools than what they hear through like different platforms. Moving on, I think I would like to kind of ponder a bit upon like one more aspect. You talked about sensitization in schools, right? Do you think that our government schools are enough? Because I assume that even if you work in Delhi, so Delhi is a much more better place for policies compared to the rest of India. The real India doesn't reside in the capital city. Real India resides other places also. So what we're trying to bring the discussion to is this idea of inclusive education for children coming from all backgrounds. We face different kind of sensitivity issues in different parts of country. Somewhere it can be caste, somewhere it can be religion, somewhere it can be the capabilities of cognitive capabilities, somewhere it can also be very cultural taboos, and somewhere it can also be something like differently able children not being treated equally in a classroom, right? So by looking at the situation on ground, what do you think, is the education inclusive of these sections that I just talked about? What are the problems that you saw or like you experienced in classrooms per se? Do you think our schools are well equipped, or we should work on making it more equipped for making it a comfortable environment for differently able students or students with some sort of disability? I don't want to use that term, but yeah, some sort of physical ailment. Because I have studied in a government college in DU, like we didn't have like proper like infrastructure to cater to students who had any problem. So yeah, if you can just bring some light to these aspects.
I think I agree 100% with you on that, Sri Lakshmi, that we do not actually have proper structures to address these issues that we currently have. When we are talking about educational equity, I think true that the real India does not reside in the metropolitan cities. First, let me like go step by step, right? And let me talk about the rural areas that you just mentioned, right? I myself, I come from a very small town, right? In Assam. And while growing up, even though I went to one of the best private schools that was available in my hometown, but still we had a lot of issues, right? And I think currently India, as we see it, is becoming a little divisive in the sense that religion has become like a primary issue, right? And I think this is something that I'm also witnessing in the structures that I'm currently working with, where minority students, they don't feel safe enough, or they don't feel that they have the platform to share whatever they feel like, or sometimes they actually get a little insecure about their own identity. Coming to the specially able kids, right? For them also, I think there are no proper mechanisms to address the issues that they face. For example, something as common as toilets, right? Something as common as washrooms. We don't see inclusive washrooms. We don't see any sort of like inclusive structures in the school as of now, but I'm hoping that the government actually takes up measures, because to be very honest and fair, I don't see any structures in place as of now that addresses the ed inequity, especially pertaining to physical inabilities or for the specially able kids. As for religion or as for caste, I think it totally also depends on the kind of teachers that are being placed, in the sense that each and every individual will have their own perception, will have their own mindset. But it's also very important to sort of not impose whatever the teachers are feeling or whatever the teachers are thinking upon the students. And also it's very important to talk to the students and know what issues they are facing and what mindsets they are building up, right? So to answer your question, I think ed inequity wala question, it's multi-pronged. There cannot be like one umbrella answer to it ki ed inequity aise khatam hoga. Ed inequity ko khatam karne ke liye alag-alag tarike honge. Jaise for example, in rural areas, one of the major problems that you might face is teacher retention, right? Teachers are not retained in the schools, जिसके वजह से बच्चों को education नहीं मिल पाता, जिसके वजह से the kids suffer, right? So in a situation like that, it would always be a good idea to incentivize the teachers much more, for them to be actually motivated to remain in that particular area and to continue their teaching, right? That can be one way of dealing with ed inequity in the rural areas. Ed inequity in terms of specially able kids, I think there should be proper mechanisms to address that. I am not equipped enough to answer that question. So I think as of now, I don't see any structures on ground that, actively addresses the ed inequity that they face. So I think there can be structures. And as answering your question pertaining to religion and caste. Religion and caste, I think, forms a major part of the Indian identity per se, right? And I think to address the air inequity that is being caused by caste and religion, there should be a proper, there should be other set of mechanisms or other set of structures to address these issues, wherein like we are not just, saying that everyone is equal, everyone has fundamental rights, but we are also believing it and practicing it on ground, and we are also educating people through awareness campaigns or through any sort of means where people are aware of the rights that they carry, and they can also like go and challenge. So that can also be one way of addressing the air inequity.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Like there is no single answer or policy suggestion to it, but there is just acknowledgement and the acknowledgement that it's absent in present situation, right? Because we carry out research and like secondary sitting research, sitting in a room and carrying out research on like how equity in education can be solved, but these real narratives actually give the researchers in this meeting a lot of perspective of like how real situation is, and कि ऐसा नहीं है कि हम एक रिसर्च पेपर के एंड में पॉलिसी सजेशन लिख देंगे या फिर कोई रिकमेंडेशन लिख देंगे और फिर वो सच हो जाएगा. So it's a bit more complicated than that. Moving on, I think Aryan raised a hand. Aryan, if you have any question pertaining to what we're discussing, or like you want to ask a general question to Deepika, you're free to ask.
Am I audible?
Yes. Can you switch on your camera so that we can see you? Yeah. Go on.
Hello, ma'am.
Hi, Aryan.
I just had a general question regarding like education in general. So education, the system of education, the mode of education has been evolving for so many decades now, like post-independence. So first, like we are used to like reading books, a lot of books, and writing everything on papers and writing everything on boards. Then like from last couple of years, we are now more used to the digital technology, especially after COVID. So we are more dependent on smartphones, laptops, and whatnot for like education, and we are relying less on paper, like books in general, or for writing or reading. So, like, I just wanted to know your opinion, like, how the education would be in the future, especially since we have been introduced to something called AI, artificial intelligence, and it's already showing that it's a lot more superior compared to like just the normal internet in general. So, how do you think this AI is going to like influence the education in the future? I just wanted to know your opinion on that.
I think to answer your question, Aryan, I think AI as a tool is really beneficial, and I think if we leverage it the right way, it can actually add a lot of benefits. For example, I'll share something. AI can also help you generate lesson plans, right? AI helps us generate lesson plans sometimes. Like you give the basic commands and they, come up with the most brilliant activities that you can carry out in the classroom. And I think slowly and gradually, AI will transform the educational infrastructure and the system per se, because, we as youngsters, we have started leveraging AI a lot for education, in the sense that, for example, even generating lesson plans, right? Sometimes we are out of ideas. Sometimes we think that, I'm at my wit's end and I do not have any activities. What should I do in my classroom? So a simple 1 or 2 commands in AI can actually generate a lot of activities for you, generate a lot of ideas as to how you can teach your lessons, as to how the kids can actually learn, right? So because we were talking about the national education policy, I think it's very important that we bring for the point that we have also started to, not just focus on, teaching, but also focus on how the students learn, right? And AI can be a very important tool to, add to this part, where we know that the students can learn through various activities. For example, in a classroom, as I already mentioned, you will have different set of students, right? Some might understand a little quicker than the others. So in order for you to address the classroom as a whole, you will need differentiated planning, right? And how do you do differentiated planning in one single lesson plan? AI can help you with that, right? AI can help you to go forward in making a differentiated lesson plan, which is like one lesson plan in a sense, but also it is catered to each and every student in the classroom. I think that way AI has also added like a lot of value to our lives. And I think for the students, they are yet to like fully leverage AI, especially in the government schools, because the kids, they don't get to use smartphones a lot. It's usually just one parent in the household that would have a smartphone, and they would mostly use that. So AI उनके लिए इतना अभी नहीं हुआ है कि इन द सेंस कि होमवर्क AI से करवा ले, वैसा नहीं हुआ है अब तक. But eventually they mostly leverage YouTube now, right? But eventually we do hope that the kids also start leveraging AI in terms of like understanding concepts and understanding any sort of thing. So I hope that answers your question, Aryan.
Yes, thank you.
Dipankar, you had a question. You can ask it now.
Am I audible?
Yes, perfect.
I have a few more things to add. Firstly, about favorite teacher. Like if the behavior and the way a teacher treats her children changes, like it improves. A student, if he even don't know the basics of subject, he will love that subject and will think that this subject is a great subject, and he will do hard work. So I think the first thing should be our teacher should be very humble with the students, should be very friend natured. Like I remembered in my class 7 history class, first chapter was about Christianity, and that madam was my school was a missionary school, and that man was also a Christian. And she treated all students so well that from that moment, I think I was so much interested in history. So behavior of teacher and is very important. Second thing about, I don't want to seem argumentative here, but I want to answer Anamika. She said about online learning is good. Yes, online learning is good, but what I said about that was only about history and politics. Because you see, if a person is studying engineering, he is studying mechanical engineering, for example, he will not be interested in political science, say Thoreau, in Hegel. He will not be interested in Shakespeare or English scholars. He will not be interested. That's what I know. He will not be interested in them that much. But if there is a rant in internet 24/7 that हमारे साथ तो गलत हुआ, we have been wrong, हमारे साथ धोखा हुआ है, तो वो इंजीनियरिंग पढ़ने वाला, that student who is studying engineering, he will definitely be interested in this history thing. And I think history is seems much more interesting to general public, because in literature, if you say, there are good channels in YouTube, and they are very useful channels in YouTube. You can learn English from that, because there is no politics included in it. There are very good channels for political science. I think Pol Science Help as a there is something like that. Pol Science Help. It's a very good channel. But in history, I have very strong opinions about history, because I think it's not a good thing, but I am a computer addict. I spend nearly 15 to 16 hours daily on internet, on PC, on YouTube. And I'll be honest, I have not studied that much in my graduation related to my core subject, ancient history and archaeology. But I have seen more than 2,500 videos on YouTube about politics, our history ranging from ancient, modern, medieval, political interviews of all streams ranging from right wing, left wing, everything. I am listening to historians like Ramchandra Guha, Rajmohan Gandhi, and many more. So you have to be very selective. If you are choosing history or politics, you have to be very selective. You cannot trust a single person. Like London Talk in YouTube is a good channel if you want to look something like unbiased thing. But they also have their advertisers. They are also funded by governments for their advertisement. So they have some constraints. And like I have 500 plus videos saved in my playlist, my interest, that I rewatch like every few days. In politics, in history, I have read a few books, good amount of books in these 3 years. And my last suggestion would be don't trust internet for history and politics. Just you can't. It's very difficult, and I will say to the extent it's next to impossible to learn history and politics from internet. One second.
Yeah, Dipankar will come back to you. So just to like kind of make your
1 minute.
question more, no, just to like make your question more crisp, I would just say that, yeah, you can go ahead if you remember what you just wanted to add. Yeah.
As I said, I hold very strong opinion about history and history of India. If we say, like modern and ancient, medieval, modern, our country is so diverse, so diverse culturally, religiously, historically, that there can be only two sides. Either you want to know history completely in a good way, or either you are not interested. The middle path that I'll see any reel, any video which comes to my feed, that is poison. I will say clear poison for our country, because half knowledge is more harmful, does more harm. Secondly, history, because history is like, you cannot say Nehru was a good leader or Nehru was a bad leader. There are no binaries in history. There is no black and white in history. There is a gray part. He might have done very good things. He might also have made blunders. So we need 500-page, 300-page history books to know history. And I will not suggest any 3 books to know the history of this country. That will not be enough. Like for reading Nehru only, if you want to have any opinion about Nehru, was he a good man? Was he a good politician? Books for even one politician, Nehru. I am not naming the books, for basic one politician, and that is not enough. That is just the beginning. Secondly, that binary, the nuances that are covered in those pages. Facts can be stated in a lucent book. Like in a fact, Gandhi came to India in 1915. This is a fact. You can see books with that those facts, but what non-fiction books does is it develops your nuances. It develops all the events that are happening. It tells us what was the condition of India when India was free. Like there was no food. In Lal Bahadur Shastri's time also, people say this and that. Lal Bahadur Shastri ji urged Indians from, I think, radio or Lal Killa, that you can, in the war time, you can fast. If you can fast for one time in a week, that would be good for the nation. You can see what was the condition of India at that time. That a PM is urging its citizens to stay hungry, not for something ethical, something moral, something religious, not because of that, because we didn't have enough food. Second thing, like I read a very beautiful book, and for school education and children welfare, that book is very relevant. That book is Mothering a Muslim by Nazia Aram. And I won't say much about that book, but one line I remember is, at what age a child starts to recognize the religion or caste of other person by his name? Like you think a child is 5 years old or 6 years old, he might not be understanding. And the very next moment he sees something on internet or in home, and he engages in any conversation, and he's very much interested in that religion. He's just seeing the name of person and he's recognizing his religion. Secondly, YouTube is a good source, but you have to be very selective for history and politics. Like for everyone, I would suggest Ramchandra Guha. His lecture is there, 1 hour lecture in Ashoka University. You can find it free on YouTube. It's on makers of modern India. And I think that video, if you trust that man, I think you should trust. He is a noted historian. That video itself is enough to make you understand the nuances of history. My next point would be about midday meal. Like in government school, midday meal is a big issue. I think only a handful of people in world, not only in India, in world are saying about veganism, vegetarianism. Veganism, a handful of people are saying, but vegetarianism is about religion, about culture, about food preferences. Okay, but I think a protein capsule, an egg, should be included and must be included in midday meal. That costs that if you buy in bulk, that will cost less than 4 rupees. So at least children who can eat eggs, if their family allows, they should be fed eggs, because you know the quality of milk that comes, and after these many quality checks also, you will never receive in my house. So if I want to pay like 100 rupees also, I will not receive pure milk. But a protein capsule egg would be very beneficial.
Dipankar, I think, yeah. So I think you've now asked a lot of questions that Dipika has to like come to every point. So yeah. So I think we'll just come back to you in a bit, because even for me, it's like a lot of points to cover. So yeah. Okay. So I'll just make it a bit crisp for her to like kind of, look at it in a better lens. So what he meant, basically two things that we can get out of it. Others are like obviously things that Dipankar wanted to add to the discussion. Firstly, the point of favoritism. I think that is something you can take it up on, like how much like favoritism. And on midday meal scheme, obviously, it's just a policy suggestion. So maybe you can answer the first question and then we can move.
Shri Lakshmi, also like I want to be a little more clear when I address this. So can you just explain it to me a little bit more? Like
Yeah.
favoritism in what context? Like if Dipankar, you can do it, or Shri Lakshmi, you can do it.
Dipankar, can you explain your first question if you can?
Favoritism, not favoritism, like I was saying about the behavior of teachers. That is very relevant in education.
Okay, I'll address that. So, Dipankar, I think I really, really agree with you when you said that, the teachers should be a little friendly because that helps the students learn better. I agree to that 100%. Reason being, I think when there is an element of fear, so fear is something that was always taken as, this emotion for students to learn, right? कि teachers से डर लगता है, इसीलिए मैं ये subject पढ़ता हूँ या पढ़ती हूँ. But that does not help to retain interest in the kids, right? So I do believe that a more friendlier nature will actually help the students open up to the teachers a bit more, in the sense that whenever they have doubts or anything, they should know the fact that they can openly come up to the teacher and ask a particular doubt for as many times as they want, without having to be fearful or without having to be scared of the teacher कि मैं अगर पूछूंगा या मैं अगर पूछूंगी, इससे the teacher might get angry and I might get scolded or I might get beaten up, right? So that fear element, I think the absence of fear actually helps kids to learn better. This also comes from a very, very personal experience. I have always felt a bit more closer to teachers who were very, very friendly, and jinke subjects mein, there was this open discussion happening and हमें बोलने का मौका मिलता था. उन teachers के class में we used to feel a little more relaxed, right? And when you are relaxed, that is when you tend to learn more, right? And I think this one structure we follow in TFI, where we don't let our kids call us ma'am or sir, we only go for didi and bhaiya. So we are didis and bhaiyas to our kids, and we are not sir or we are not ma'ams to anybody. We are just your friends. We are just your didis, your bhaiyas. We are there to help you study, and we are also there to learn and grow together, right? So that is one aspect that I learned from TFI, that how, being friendly can actually help the kids learn a lot better, because it so happens that the kids, they feel a sense of connectivity when they say didi and bhaiya, right? So मैं दीदी के पास जाऊंगा या जाऊंगी अगर ये issue हो रहा है, that comes because उनको एक relativity feel होता है, connectivity
Safe space,
feel
creating.
होता है when they say didi and bhaiya. And I think, yeah. So that's to answer your first question. I think I really agree with you on that point. Coming to the midday meal part, I think adding a protein diet, I think, would make a lot of sense. But also, having said that, India is also a country jahan pe, a lot of people are vegetarian per se, right? And some of them still consider egg to be a non-vegetarian item. And I am not sure like how to, sort of implement that, and how what policies should come up to address a mindset change jahan pe hum अंडों को लेके discussion कर रहे हैं. But also adding on to that point, especially in DOE schools, the government do provide folic acids, they do provide iron tablets and folic acids every week for the kids to consume. And I think that's a good way to go about it, along with the midday meal scheme. Midday meal to 8th standard tak hi hota hai, but iron tablets and folic tablets are also like given out to kids till 10th standard. So that's another way that the government is going forward with it, right? Shilakshmi, I will go off camera because my phone is dying out a little bit. I hope that is okay. As soon as my phone is charged a little bit, I'll come back on camera.
Yeah, that's completely fine. So yeah, I think Jesse, like you said, like we're not too well equipped to get into the nutrition part of it and like evaluate the midday meal scheme. I don't think like both of us are. So we'll move on to other part of our discussion. We'll take up NEP a bit later, and we'll move on to Shivpriya had a few questions for you. So Shivpriya, you can ask one of them to Deepika.
Yeah. So Deepika, first of all, like as you just mentioned, and that it's the teacher who can help you to retain an interest in the subject. So I would like to know that what kind of measures or strategies or approach you have used as a like Teach for India fellow for fostering an effective learning environment. I would like to know that.
Thank you for that question. Yeah, I really like it. I'd be more than happy to share. So starting off, is it okay if I take like 5 minutes of your time? Because I want to walk you through a classroom, general like classroom every day that we have. So we start off the class with an opening activity, right? It can either be a short mindful activity where we are asking the kids to, close their eyes, meditate for a little bit, center their thoughts and everything. We usually start off with that. And the first thing that we generally do is to create a hook for the class, in the sense that we just don't go about starting the chapter and, हम immediately ऐसे नहीं शुरू हो जाते हैं कि आज हम ये पढ़ेंगे, ऐसे ये करेंगे. We generally start off with a thinking activity where we are activating the brains to think about the concepts that we are going to study and where have they seen it in their real lives. Because I think real life connection helps kids to learn a lot better, in the sense कि उनको पता होती है चीजें, kids, they know things, they have seen things, they have also heard things, but it's just about making the connection, right? And I think for us, we do a lot of attention grabbers also, like a few attention grabbers that my students enjoys a lot is when I say Kamar Sidi, they'll have to say eyes on Didi. So we do that for a little bit, and that helps us, get their attention. And also, I think we have a very, very essential thing called guided practice. Guided practice is where, the kids are doing activities themselves. They are doing some formative assessments, but with the help of the teacher, where they are like usually paired up, or they usually divided into groups where they're doing an activity themselves. Together, where there will be a mix of high rigor students as well as high potential as well as high risk students. So all of them are working together in collaboration, right? And we also have our 8 C's that we primarily focus on. So I'll name some of the C's that we have in our class. We have collaboration, we have curiosity, we have critical thinking, we have consciousness, we have communication. So these are some C's that we inculcate in the class, in the sense that we will function with these particular C's on a day-to-day basis, which helps the students, build connection. For example, as I already mentioned, for the guided practice part, it's always collaboration that we leverage in between among students, right? And it's not always on the teacher to, create a conducive environment. I would really suggest that something that we really like doing in our classrooms is we try and leverage students against one another, in the sense that a high rigor student is also equally valuable as a teacher to a high potential or a high risk students, right? So we also believe in leveraging the students to help their peers. So we have a system called the buddy system, where the friends are helping their friends to grow and learn, because it's always better to learn that way, क्योंकि हमें अपने friends के साथ वैसे भी बात करना, कुछ सीखना पसंद होता है, और जैसे ही कोई दोस्त बोलता है कि ये इसको ऐसे करते हैं, we tend to hear to it more, we tend to pay attention to it more. So these are some of the basic structures that we have in our classroom to like sort of build connections with the kids, and to also help impart lessons. I hope that answers your question, Shifriya.
Yeah, Dipika, I completely agree with you. Like, as you talked about the connection, like teacher-student connection is really important, and it's really necessary for fostering an effective learning environment, and like further it enhance the quality of education. So, like in your opinion, what are the measures we should take to ensure the effective implementation of our national education policy?
Okay, I think for the effective implementation, there again cannot be like an umbrella answer to it, saying that, this can be one effective way, because as we know about the national education policy, it caters to a lot of things, right? And for each and everything, there would be a nuanced policy, a nuanced technique of implementation or something like that. So I don't think there can be one tool of effective implementation, but addressing to I'll take up one aspect of it, differentiated learning, right? So as I already shared, and I think you guys now know it, that how a classroom has different students with different, rigor levels. So for that, I think national education policy also caters a lot to differentiated learning, and I think differentiated learning can only happen if you also train the teachers on methodologies that will help you create a differentiated learning plan, or help you create a differentiated learning method in the class, right? So that can be one effective tool of implementation, where the teachers are trained to create or curate a lesson plan that caters to differentiation, right? And as for the evaluation part, I think I would suggest that a national education policy also has put in a lot of importance on formative assessments and summative assessments. I think that can be one way of going about with evaluation. I think that can be one effective tool, wherein you are taking formative assessments after each and every topic that you teach, rather than doing one major summative assessment at the end of the year, testing your retention skills, right? Because retention is not the only skill that you want to build or you want to develop, right? Kids might have many skills, and summative assessment mein kya hota hai? We are mostly testing retention ki bacche ne kitna retain kara chapters, right? So I think formative assessment, prioritizing formative assessment can be one effective implementation technique or tool in terms of evaluation. In terms of differentiation, I think teacher trainings, that can be one method of implementation. I hope that answers.
Yeah. I think Shifriya, you got the answer for like,
Yeah.
in general, I think that was like a very overall question. It requires like very detailed like aspects of national education policy has to be covered for what caters to what. So that aspect needs to be covered in that. But I still hope like Dipika tried to answer your question. So yeah, so we'll just move on to further last questions of the session, because Deepika said in the beginning of the session that she's really tired. So we would not want to like strain her more, but understanding few things. Like now, the major discussion that's happening around like the boards, like the pressure being taken off from the children by giving them two chances. I believe you teach 10th standard also. So what is the pulse like as a teacher and as a someone who's in a school environment? Like, what is the pulse among the students? Like, I think personally, I feel it's a good move. But yeah, Deepika, if you like to share something about this aspect of the policy.
Shilakshmi, can you repeat it? I could not understand it very clearly.
Yeah, so the new policy talks about how in 10th, the boards they'll be able to give the boards twice, right? To improve their score, that is. So yeah, I believe you teach 10th and like you're in an environment with people who are in 10th and all. So like, what do you think about it? Like, what is the pulse of the students regarding this
Okay,
policy?
okay, got it. So I used to teach 10th, right? So as I transitioned to a new school, I am now teaching 9th. But to answer your question, I think the kids are liking it a lot in the sense that, there's always this, just give me a second, okay? Yeah, okay. Am I audible?
Yeah, perfectly.
Yeah, okay, perfect. So the kids are actually liking it a lot in the sense that now they will have two opportunities to like, sit for the exam rather than the पहले क्या था boards का, there's always used to be this scare. And I think all of us have gone through it. My kids have also gone through it. I have gone through it twice, once for myself and once for my kids, where I was really, really anxious, thinking about how they would perform, thinking about whether or not they'll be able to answer all the questions and stuff like that. But now I think it'll lessen the burden a little bit, and I think the kids are really excited for it. I'm yet to have a proper discussion with the 10th graders on how they're feeling about it, but I know it for a fact that the kids are, I think, a little bit excited about it, because it's also, I think, change is any day welcome, right? When especially catering to the students, when students are at the center of change, so they tend to usually like it. So as of now, I think the pulse is a little positive.
Okay, that's great to know. Nikita, we lost Nikita due to like network connection. So she also had a question. Nikita,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
joined now, okay?
Can I ask? Am I audible, Shri?
Ha,
Yes, you are.
yes, you can go.
So, as we know that one of the major goal of the national economic policy is to bring out of school student back into the education fold and to achieve that gross enrollment ratio, 100% gross enrollment ratio. But still, we can see in India that there is a very high dropout rate in the secondary level. So
Yeah.
I wanted to ask that how can we resolve the retention problem and stop students from dropping out from schools?
Thank you so much for that question, Nikita. I think it's very, very relevant in the current context. When we're talking about gross enrollment ratio, we really do aim 100%, but as of now, that's not the reality, right? So addressing to your question, I think it can also be further divided, right? The reason for a boy dropping out is very different from a girl dropping out, right? A girl generally tends to drop out because घर में gender issues हो सकते हैं, where they might only have resources to sponsor the education of one child, and they often go forward with sponsoring the education of the male child. So the girl child in the family would end up dropping off. At times in rural areas, one of the major reason for girls dropping out, of course, is lack of washroom facilities, wherein the girls, they don't feel comfortable enough, especially during their menstrual cycle, to actually go to schools, and that is one of the reasons why they drop out. Then another reason could be it's generally considered ki ladkiyon ko, they will be married off after a certain age, so there is not really a point in educating them and things like that. So there's not a proper conducive environment in the household to sort of promote their education. That can be one of the reasons. For boys to drop out, one of the major reasons that I have seen kids drop out is primarily because they have to earn for their family, right? And they rather would go for a job that would give them some amount of money to sustain their family rather than going to school. Right. So in order to address the enrollment issues, I think we also need policies that are catered to, the gender division in the society. For girls, I think promotion of policies such as like Sukanya Yojana, or for that matter, any sort of policies that we have, Beti Padhao, Beti Bachao, all of these policies, I think the promotion and awareness on these policies might actually help kids enroll better. I think proper washroom facilities can be one of the major reasons. In my previous school, the girls that they did not, it was a girls' school, but they did not have like a proper washroom. So most of them ended up having UTI troubles or kidney stones and things like that. And they would miss school for months at a stretch, for weeks at a stretch, right? So proper like sanitation and hygienes to be maintained in school. I think that can be one way of also ensuring enrollment ratios. I think yeah, overall, these are some of the issues. Sorry, these are some of the ways as to how we can actually take care of the enrollment ratio, depending on the issues that we have. Like, because in rural areas, the issues might be very different, and in urban areas, the issues might be really different. And this is not something that we see mostly in private schools. This is a very common phenomena in government schools where we are catering to under-resourced communities, right? So yeah, I think policies are a good way to go about it.
Yeah, I think that covers a lot of aspects of it. Now you can take time to drink a bit of water. You've been speaking for a while now. The last part of the session. So we'll be taking up questions from people who didn't get chance to ask anything. So I think no, I can't see any raised hands because I'm on a different window. But I saw Anshita raise a hand before. So Anshita, would you like to ask? Like this would be the last like a question, and we'll get to the concluding part of it. So yeah, Anshita, yeah, you can ask.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, Anshita, you are.
So hello, Dipika ma'am. I have studied from a government school, and I am from Delhi, or it was a girls' school, Sarvodaya Kanya Vidyalaya. So as you discussed about dropouts, what Nikita said, to reduce the dropout rate of girls, government introduced two skill courses when I was in 9th standard by NSQF, National Skill Qualification Framework. One was information technology, and other one I don't remember. So I chose. I chose information technology and studied it for 4 years. But for other course, there was no teacher till 12th standard, and not a single teacher was introduced for them. So the student who chose that subject was not able to study that. I think Delhi government is trying their best to reduce the number of dropouts, and they are ensuring that education remain relevant to the evolving needs of society and job market. So my question is that, what do you think, what would be the reason that why the government, the ground implementation of these policies is not properly well structured?
I think Anshita, that's a really good question, right? Because Delhi government has been trying since 2015 to actually, implement these vocational courses, and they're still very much a part of the DOE structure, right? So each and every school will have about 4 to 5 vocational courses, depending on the availability of teachers, right? For my school, we have information technology and we have beauty and wellness, right? Yeah. So, and some schools might have travel and tourism also as part of VOC. I think one of the major reasons as to why the implementation is not taking off is because there's a lack of teachers, addressing these vocational courses, because there's also a certain degree of, it's also a mindset problem, I would say, where generally teachers who teach vocational courses are not as well respected, and I mean there's a stereotypical mindset of like not teaching the core subjects. I think that also leads to a dearth of teachers overall, because over the course of 1.5 years, what I've witnessed is the VOC teachers except for this one particular teacher that I know is very, very dedicated to beauty and wellness, and she takes classes on a regular basis. But overall, the vocational classes are not taken that seriously because it doesn't fall under the core subjects. You can, there's a general mindset that you can score really well, or you can just, score as much as you like in these vocational courses, and they're not given the due respect, right? So I think there is a mindset problem. Also, there's a dearth of teachers on ground to actually implement the policy. So I think as more and more people would opt for the vocational courses to teach the vocational courses, I think that would solve like half of our problems. I hope that answers your question, Anshita. And I think thank you for bringing that up. I was actually talking about this to a friend of mine when we are talking about national education policy and skill building and vocational courses and things like that. So DOE has they've had a structure focusing on skill training for a really long time now, but it's just not taking off because of these minute issues where on ground implementation is really like it faces a major setback because there's a dearth of teachers. There are absolutely like no teachers, and sometimes you'd see that one vocational course teacher would end up teaching across 2-3 schools. So there's a proper lack of human resource per se.
Thank you so much for this.
Yeah, I think exactly like we talked about vocational studies aspect, but again, like there's less faculty to teach such interesting subjects anyway, and less people take it also. Even in colleges, such optionals are very less chosen, and
Absolutely.
even when people end up choosing these optionals, they lack faculty to teach those papers. I'm very sure we have a lot of undergrad students here. They're studying a very different BA than the BA that we did. They're doing like seven papers with no faculty available in one paper and things like that. I think these kind of boils down to even school levels, like you just said, Deepika. So to conclude the session, I would just like to ask one question. That's just Dipankar. Okay. Would you like to add something, Dipankar?
Yes, one core NEP related question I have. Like last year, I was in college. College created that I think every college created that ABC ID, Bank of Credit something. So this is credit transfer system. So that is good for students. I think it's the best policy. But is Government of India or in policy research level, are we thinking about doing this to the graduates who have graduated in 1990s or so that people who are interested in education but have left their studies in 1990s, have done graduation in 1990s, do we have enough resources, funds, intent to keep make them mainstream by? And second question, second thing I want to add is like first is new education policy. Second, about the data, I was just seeing National Health Survey data. 60 to 70% of Indians now, they consume non-veg. So we can start a pilot project in some state where 90% of people are eating non-veg in government schools. So that can be helpful. Thirdly,
you said
about
one question. You said one question. Now this is like too many questions to put Deepika through after a 1.5 hour session.
That's one. I was not just for the question. I want to say thing. Like if we see any podcast or any YouTube video of any YouTuber, influencer, creator, max to max, I think you could prepare that video in 15 days. From planning, execution, editing, graphics, everything, we can do it in 15 days. But if we see a book, in history book, I have seen people take 5 to 10 years to write a 300-page book. I will take 2 examples. First is a book on Nehru, Mithak or Sat by Piyush Babele. He's a journalist. He took 5 years of his life to write a 300, 400, 500-page book. And those are mostly his archives, from his archives. He had spent hours and hours in archives, searched those letters, those relevant things, and he has compiled that book. Secondly, about Akbar. Like we have we will all agree that we have read Akbar was a secular, some sort of secular leader in his time, according to his time. Or some will say there is a poem that says that no, he was not a that good man. But a person is there, Shazi Zaman. He has written a book in Hindi, and that is available now in English also. But in Hindi, he has included words from that era also. It's a difficult read, I will say. But that person has spent 10 years of his life writing that book. And you will be amazed to know that Akbar in his later life was very alone. He was having something like bipolar disorder. So for this reason, for these nuances, for this gray part, we need to read books. Thank you. I will not say at this session more. Thank you for giving me time.
Okay, Shilakshmi, I'll take up these questions. Like, Dipankar, can you come off camera because it would be nice to like see your face while talking. So yeah, I'll start from the end, right? So in most of our conversations and in most of the questions that you asked, you focused a lot on how important studying books are, right? How important it is to read books, and no one is denying that, right? And I think it is extremely, extremely important for us to read books. And I think all of us, we have read a lot of books as part of our undergrad or postgrad or in general, because I am someone who endorses reading books. And I think, not I think, but in my previous class, I did create a mini library with the help of donated books, and I still do that. We have a structure in our classroom wherein we call it Wonderful Wednesdays. We do a lot of reading and we do a lot of studying and everything. But having said that, most of the parts that you are talking about is catered to students in college, right? But we are mostly focused on talking about students in school, right? And it so happens that we do need to inculcate the habit of reading books from a very young age, and that is something that we are doing, right? And it's essentially very, very important. But what happens nowadays is we can't live with a utopian idea of things, right? Social media is everywhere. I think smartphones are something that at least like for my kids, they will at least have one smartphone in their houses. And I think for half an hour or for an hour, they'll consume content. And my point in bringing up the content part was the fact that you actually cannot put like a full stop to the kind of content that they're consuming, or you can't like put a speed breaker to that, right? Only thing that you can do is you can side by side also inculcate habits of reading so that they know how to differentiate, right? And I 100% agree with you on that point, wherein you are inculcating habits of reading so that they know how to differentiate. And that is the maximum we can do as teachers. We can build in habits of reading, habits of differentiating, habits of identifying what is misleading and what is actually the truth. And we can actually do that with the help of structures in the classroom, or and encouraging them to read more and do more. But having said that, like social media is not also entirely an evil thing, because on YouTube, as you suggested, there are channels like Lalan Top and everything where you can leverage knowledge from. You can learn a lot of things from. So there are many YouTube channels created by Byju's, also by an academy, wherein they are actually teaching concepts, where they're actually using videos, for example, to explain something as simple as Gondwana landmass, right? And how it's split up and things like that. So a video on YouTube is actually more appealing to the kids in the sense that they can visualize, right? So you can't outrightly say that these platforms are bad, full stop, and we should not use them. So that cannot happen, right? So what we can do is we can actually try and leverage these platforms, at the same time also equip our kids to differentiate between what is ethical and what is unethical, and what is misinformation, and what they should consume, right? Then I think for the non-veg part, I think the NSSO data that you carried out or that you found out, I think it's quite relevant. But also, having said that, like even for the 90% population, if they are non-vegetarian, I am not an expert in this matter for me to comment, right? And I'm also not a policy maker for me to actually, come up with a solution right away. It's just that uh, I can either agree, disagree, or just, agree to disagree, whatever. So I think as of now, I agree to disagree because I also think there are other nuances to it. We can have like a chat properly post the session if you feel like it. Then I think I missed out on your first question.
Ma'am,
What was it?
it was related to new education policy, credit of banks like credit transfer system. Can we implement it for elder people like who graduated in like?
Credit
I
transfer
think I
system.
think sorry to interrupt here again.
Yeah.
I think this is like a very specific based question. Like I don't think we're equipped to answer this aspect of it because again, it's a policy that requires a lot more background knowledge, I think. So we'll not be like covering that bit in this because even if three of us sit here and discuss, we need more expertise on this specific technical question of ABC credit system, right?
100%.
Okay. Yeah. So lastly, Deepika, coming to the end, I'm so sorry. We've stretched the session a bit here, but Dipankar has asked a question. Maybe Deepika, you can help him with that, and you can get in touch and talk
Yeah,
more about
absolutely.
these
Dipankar,
aspects.
we can get in touch over LinkedIn and I can share my contact details and we can have a chat about
Yeah.
it, right? Okay.
Yeah, about the book sorts. Yeah. So coming to the last bit, one thing all of us wanted to ask you is that what do you feel about your fellowship so far? And how do you feel to be like such a young individual and like doing your bit for education at such a young age already? So yeah, with this we can end. Yeah, you can just share your experience on this. We all wanted to
I
hear.
think, I think I am absolutely in love with the fellowship because I get to be on the other side of things. I used to be a student and now I'm a teacher. So I do have both the perspectives now. And I think I tremendously enjoy the fellowship because this is not just a fellowship wherein, I am imparting something or I am doing something. It's a flow of things. I get to learn so much from my kids on a day-to-day basis, right? And growing up, essentially what happens is uh, we become entangled with our day-to-day struggles so much that we actually forget to live our lives, right? And one best part of the fellowship is the fact that I get to recall my childhood and I get to relive my childhood through vicariously through the kids on a day-to-day basis. So I think I truly love the fellowship, and also I love the fact that um, I get to talk to the young change makers, right? And these are the youth of India that we're talking about, right? And these kids will someday lead the country, and I am really happy and grateful to be a part of the system in the sense that I get to talk with these kids on a day-to-day basis, know what they're thinking, know what they're learning, know what they aspire to be, and somehow be of use to them. So I think this journey for me has been nothing but beautiful.
That's we're very happy to hear that, and we're so happy for you as well that you got to experience this. And I think you're one of obviously we talk to a lot of Teach for India fellows as part of our program, but there's passion everywhere, but there's also like less passion everywhere. But you were one of the most passionate people I came across. And in general, I see a lot of my batchmates and my seniors also doing it with a lot of passion. I think it's a very good initiative to bring youth into the narrative of education. So today, Deepika, I would like to thank you for joining us and like providing this many real life experiences and insights from education to all our interns and like whoever is watching our stream on live. I'm sure that they've gotten a lot of information out of you, and we are so sorry for like squeezing every bit of information out of you. We wanted to cover everything in an overall perspective through your lens, but we ended up getting a lot more than we expected. So thank you so much. We were so happy meeting someone who has so much in-depth knowledge about the field that they're working in. We don't find such people most often. So we are very lucky this time. And also talking about how you brushed each aspect and you give answers patiently to all our interns and whatever their like questions were, you tried to cover every one of them. Some of them asked like very like wide range questions. You still like planned it and answered it like very specifically. Thank you so much for taking out this time. Your valuable inputs means a lot to Sarkari School. At Sarkari School, we wish to like stream this and make our children from government schools also go through this and understand this, and also like graduates understand how opportunities like Teach for India can maybe like not change their life entirely, but can add on to their life. So I hope the
Absolutely.
opportunity was fruitful for you too, and you too enjoyed the session. So
Absolutely, Shilakshmi. First of all, thank you to each and everyone for being a part of the session. Special thanks to Sarkari School and Shilakshmi for actually inviting me, because this was actually my first time, in a public platform wherein I'm talking to people, interacting with a lot of youngsters. And I think this was quite beneficial for me because you guys asked a lot of insightful questions. I hope I was able to answer at least some part of it. So I really look forward to more engagements with Sarkari School. And I think I would really love to, keep in touch with all of you guys. If you want to like reach out to me, please feel free to connect me on LinkedIn. And I would be happy to chat up anytime. Thank you. Thank you so much.
thank you so much for joining us, and we hope to host you soon enough. We have a lot of like conferences, and we would like your involvement in a lot of them. So yeah, just like involving youth in education is the narrative of Sarkari School. And thank you so much for being part of it. And thank you to all the interns for their contribution. You guys made this discussion session very lively. You guys added so much to it, and I hope you guys got a lot of it as well. So thank you for everyone who joined. Would like to thank Abhishek sir also for always encouraging us to go ahead with such programs and take the narrative of Sarkari School forward. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. I'll be ending the live stream.
Thank you.